You need to be able to understand that you are causing thoughts and feelings in the person in front of you. No matter what you do, the way you dress, the way you look, the way everything you do is causing thoughts and feelings in other people. And if you don't understand that, you're not getting social skills, number one, because 80% of what we do in conversation is nonverbal.
Welcome to the Soaring Child Podcast, where parents of children with ADHD learn tips and tricks to help their child soar at home, at school, and in life. We feature interviews with experts, medical professionals, and parents just like you who are learning how to reduce ADHD symptoms using food and other natural strategies. Because children with ADHD deserve to soar just like every other child. I'm your host, Dana Kay.
Hello parents, this is Dana Kay here with another edition of the Soaring Child Podcast. Now this week we are exploring something that I have been waiting to explore on this podcast, and I came across this wonderful woman on one of the parenting summits that I did, and I was so excited to get her on this podcast. We are actually going to be interviewing a speech pathologist, and we're going to talk about helping kids learn to make friends, having social skills, language development, and also how to deal with speech delays. And I know that this is really an issue that a lot of parents face that have kids with ADHD. So my guest is the owner and head speech language pathologist at Family First Speech Therapy in San Diego, California. For over 20 years, she has been helping families thrive through improving communication skills. She's a licensed California speech language pathologist, certified orofacial myologist, and parenting coach. Her name is Kolby Kail, and she offers support for speech, language deficits, behaviors, ADHD, and so much more. Kolby believes in a whole family approach, just like I do. She works with the entire family to help a child achieve their goals while having fun and setting up each family member to thrive. Now it's time to welcome Kolby Kail to the Soaring Child. Hi, Kolby. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. We were just discussing actually, Kolby is in San Diego and she was watching the television the other morning and she saw me on the television. I couldn't believe it. Even though I was on television on a morning show, I was thinking to myself, no one's watching. No one's actually going to see this. And here she is.
I was.
Yes, I'm so excited. So thank you so much for joining us. I know, look, kids with ADHD often struggle with social skills. And so let's dive deep into that. What are social skills and when do they actually begin?
Well, social skills begin when pretty much at birth. You know, you and your kids start getting the distance from eye to child is the distance from your breast to that's what they see. And so you start connecting with your kid pretty much the moment they come out. That's about the distance that they can see clearly in terms of, you know, being able to recognize mom's face and mom's voice and all of that. So that starts very, very early. And as most of us that are out there as parents know, you started communicating with your kid very early, meaning you got them, you know, you coo back and then they coo and they, you know, you just have that back and forth communication. So they start very, very early. But even kind of like you're saying, I think the latest statistic is 90% of children with ADHD have some sort of language deficit.
Wow.
So it's across the board. And again, language really is the content and the start of everything. So for me personally, as an undiagnosed ADHD or as a young child, I'm a pretty smart little human. And but however, as fast as the teachers would go at the end of like, go get started, kids, I would be in like deer in the headlights. And it was just because everything wasn't organized in a way that I knew what to do. Was I supposed to get my book? Was I supposed to get paper? Was I supposed to get my... So again, social skills are also that. Can you follow the conversation that's at hand? Because just because you hear the words doesn't mean it's computing. And that was really where my social skill deficit came, is that it was easier for me to be silly And to kind of get that part of, my teachers liked me because I would be silly, but I really had a very hard time staying focused and doing the work at hand because I didn't exactly know the flow and what it was supposed to be, nor did I have the technique, if you will, to ask the proper questions so the teacher could direct me where to go.
That's really interesting. And I just want to jump back onto that point, and it doesn't really have anything to do with social skills, but I'm going on a tangent as I generally do. Yeah. So you were undiagnosed. When did you get diagnosed?
As a full-blown adult.
Yeah.
So I had a really hard time handling depression and handling the ups and downs of parenthood. Mm-hmm. So I'm not even a young mother. My first child was born at 34, but I was building a business and doing all of these things, having a brand new child, kind of a brand new marriage. I was only married a year. I dated my husband for a long time. But again, it started getting so overwhelming. His father died and he went into a place that you go when your parents die. And I couldn't get out of, what am I supposed to do today? It wasn't like depression where I wanted to stay in my bed all day, which of course we have those days too. But I was confused all the time. I didn't know what I should do. How do I build my business? What do I do first? And it was easier to live in confusion than it was to do anything. And so when I would go speak with my health professional, she was like, Kolby, I think you have ADHD. Have you ever heard of that? And of course I've heard of it, but I was like, I guess I've always been the impulsive, weird social skills. I used to try to get kicked out of class in high school so I didn't have to sit in class. I had all the hallmarks of an ADHDer. But as soon as she was like, okay, we're going to start the testing and getting all that stuff, and lo and behold, there it is. It was kind of like, where I deep dived into that. And I was like, oh, yes, I do. And then my daughter got a little bit older and had all the same things. She's now 11, going to be 12 next month. But it was like dyslexia. I mean, you name it. And it was there it all was. And it was like, oh, well, I'm not letting her go down my path. Because again, I self-medicated in high school and very much wanted to get kicked out of class, would sing to my teachers just so they would say, just go. Yes. And of course I don't want her going down that path.
Yes. And look, the reason that I asked that question is because a lot of girls go undiagnosed because they tend to have more of those quiet symptoms, and they're more, silly, cutesy, whereas the boys have those loud symptoms. And that's just a generalization, but I just wanted to point that out because that is quite common. So if families, if you're listening and you have a daughter who, is experiencing some of those symptoms, or you're identifying them, it is wise to get that looked at because you don't want them to go through, exactly what you went through. So thank you for sharing that story. Look, I know that a lot of kids that have that, social challenges or those social skill deficits, sometimes also have that social anxiety. And so from your professional perspective, is there, a difference between that social skills delay and that social anxiety?
Absolutely. Yes. Social anxiety is where you're scared to go into a social situation. You're very nervous to even put yourself in there. And then you have social deficits where you really want friends, but for some reason you can't get it to stick. So there's the difference. Do they live together sometimes? Yes, they do live together. But once you start teaching the skill and how to get in the social situation, can your child actively participate and become to use those and carry them over into the social skills? Meaning here, it's even hard to get them to walk in the door where you are nervous, and it's just the anxiety of walking in the door is more of the challenge than once you get in and you're kind of getting your groove, that part of a thing. So there is a very big difference in my opinion.
Yeah. And look, that actually reminds me of a story of a client of mine who had a son, went through my program, and she went to the school parent-teacher interview, as people do in every year at school. And the teacher said to her, oh, he's so popular. He has so many friends. And she was absolutely flawed because the year before, he just suffered so much from social anxiety, the lack of social skills, and that he had no friends. And once we could reduce inflammation in the body, we can open up, those for him to be able to function better. All of those skills started to come into place. And so, if parents are seeing some of those social anxiety or social skill deficits, what should they do? What are some of those strategies that they should implement to help them overcome that?
So we're talking ages here. Now we have to go into ages because again, you're going to say the same things in different ways to different aged kids. But again, you need to be able to understand that you are causing thoughts and feelings in the person in front of you. No matter what you do, the way you dress, the way you look, the way everything you do is causing thoughts and feelings in other people. And if you don't understand that, you're not getting social skills, number one, because 80% of what we do in conversation is nonverbal. The way you're looking, the way you're moving your body, the way you're conducting yourself. Are you in an open posture? All those things, those words that we get told. But again, when you are little and you walk into your preschool class and all your friends are building blocks and you walk over and kick it over and they are mad and you're laughing, it's right there. You forgot that they had a plan and you just mucked it all up. Yeah. And so those kids are now crying and upset with you. And if that persists, those children now have a thought. When you get close to my area, I am going to go into protection mode. Go away, because you always mess up my plan. You always mess up what's in my space. And so again, painting outside on the playground, a lot of these kids, they take the ball and they throw it instead of having the bounce and back and forth game that we're supposed to be doing. We throw the ball thinking it's hilarious that you have to go get it, but I don't want to play with you. That doesn't make it fun for me. And so again, being in a social situation, when you go into a classroom, even for me, and I was walking into my high school and I wasn't feeling good. And so in terms of understanding what was going on in the classroom. So I would sing, and usually they were Christmas songs, and I would just sit in my desk and start singing. I know that those kids were like, what is she doing? And I made friends with the kids that were easy to make friends with. The druggies, and those are the people that I could get in their crowd with because they were also doing things wrong and they were also causing feelings, not the positive ones that the positive kids, if you will, want to be around, and that I'm, the teachers like me and I get my work done. Now, so we have to understand, number one, that you are causing thoughts and feelings in other people, if you like it or not.
I love that. Can everyone just stop and just press pause there and go and get a piece of paper, get a pen and write that down? Because just even that one statement is a game changer. We don't actually ever break it down like that, do we? I don't think that I have ever said to my children, just so you know, you are causing thoughts and feelings in other people that you need to be aware of. I love it. I mean, thank you. Yeah. We can finish this podcast episode now. No, I'm joking.
Drop the mic, girl. Drop the mic.
So, well, that in itself is a game-changing statement. But then how do you let's talk about it in the ages. How do you get, say, a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old to really understand that?
So you start teaching them, meaning usually what I'm looking at is what I'm thinking of. Now, I mean, of course, we could back up to that in terms of we wash ourselves, we make sure we smell good, all of those things that are the initial, what do we look like? Now, I don't want to take that too far, meaning your kid doesn't have to have the best hair and the best clothes and the best everything. We just want them clean and presentable, right? Because even the dirty kid in class, it makes me think of that Adam Sandler movie where that little boy, he was the dirty kid and you're like, oh, I have the dirty kid. Oh no. But again, even at that little age, the kids know that you are dirty and smelly. So take that with a grain of salt, parents, but you want your kids to be presentable. They don't have to be, in go to couture, but they do need to be, clean and presentable. And then the second part is we need to get the kids thinking that I am thinking about what I'm looking at. So let's go back to the preschoolers with their blocks, and they're building their blocks. They are thinking about the blocks. They have a plan, most likely. They're building a city. They're doing something with those blocks. And for you to come over there and knock them down presents a plan. So again, when you're walking around, and it matters where your social skills deficit is and where that is, have your kid, if you're watching TV at home, to put all the commercials on pause and ask the kid what's going on. No voices, no talking. See if they can just figure out what is going on in the social story. Now, again, YouTube, whatever your kid likes, you could do it with Coco Melon. Are they having what's going on? Why is the kid crying? What do you think happened? And back in the day when there were commercials, I used to have my parents, all the commercials were on pause. Can you figure out what's going on without any noise in terms of verbal words? What's going on?
On pause or on mute?
On mute. I'm sorry.
Yes.
On mute. I'm saying pause, but I mean on mute. Yeah. Or your YouTube shows, have them on mute and try to figure out what's going on without words. So just body language. And then if you find that that's even difficult, you're going to back it up again. And so I play games with my younger kids, and I'm going to look at something. Tell me what I'm looking at. And then what might my thought be? So I look at a clock. You're probably wondering what time it is because you want to go somewhere. I'm looking at the door. You're ready to go somewhere. So again, you move your gaze, and what am I looking at? My coffee. Why? Because it's delicious and I want to drink, and those are the things. So we start building the why on what I'm thinking of. If I'm sitting there and I'm playing with my blocks and I'm having a really good time, I'm probably having fun thinking about what I'm going to build next and how the plan is going to go through. So again, you join in on that thought that you think. Is that making sense?
Total sense. And I was actually talking about some tips and tricks to go back to school, because it's, at the time of filming this episode, our kids will be going back to school, or some have already started to go back to school, and one of those is practice social skills. So I love how you just broke that down, and, starting really slow and simple at home, asking your kid when you're doing a task, what do you think I'm experiencing? What do you think I'm feeling? What do you think I'm thinking? Because that is basically the practice, isn't it? And then taking it the next level to the TV. What are they thinking? What's going on? I love that. And I think that it's very, very simple. And, in everything that I do, it's always about that consistency. So I assume that it's, if you're consistent in doing this and in practicing this, then that's how you are going to be building those skills. But if you do it once, probably not going to help. Am I right?
Absolutely. And then I'm just going to kind of take it a little bit higher for our older kids. If your kid has social anxiety and has social skill deficits, use your phone, teach them to use their phone as a tool. So you see the kids you want to hang out with, the kids you're thinking you wanted to play with. Take your phone like you're on it, pretend. Now you are going to have to practice with your kid to help them, but you are just going to be flipping through. You're listening to what your friends, so soon to be, are talking about. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? It's a little bit harder as older students to think, okay, what are they thinking when they're looking at their friends? So go and listen, have a way in, you sit at the lunch table and sit there and listen while you're pretending to look at your phone. And then at some point you start understanding, they talk about they talk about bleh, they talk about bleh, and you have a way in. And friends, you have a way out. Oh, my mom's going to call me in 5 minutes. I got to go. So again, you have a way out if you don't like the way the social situation is going. Okay. So use this as a tool to be able to get your kid in and out of social situations that they want or don't want to be in, because that'll kind of help your kids start understanding, this is what they talk about. They love Pokemon. They love Taylor Swift. They love embellishing shirts and they're into painting. Now your kid can be like, okay, I'm going to learn a little bit about that. And next time I'm sitting, have you guys tried XYZ? And again, you have a way in to the conversation of the social group you feel you want to be in. But you may learn that that's not it, but at least you have a way in.
Mind blowing, Kolby. Seriously, mind blowing, because I love that. And the reason that my mind is especially blowing is because I've got a 13-and-a-half-year-old. Look, he's got a great circle of friends, but I wouldn't even think to teach him to do that, if he wants to sort of navigate new friendships. And I think that that is a fantastic way and a fantastic tool, especially because you've got a way out.
Got a way out.
Gold, absolute gold there. So, you've got these tools, you've got these tips that, you can start training your kids and getting them to practice these. When should parents sort of seek that outside help?
When you find that what you're doing isn't working, when you find your kid in depression, when you find complaining and non-joy. Remember, joy is a choice, parents. So I have to remind you as parents that joy is a choice. Happiness is a choice. So remember, the way you carry yourself around the house is also a big thing. If you are always in doom and gloom and, excuse my language, but shit, I have another day of work today, and it's always that everything is so hard. Life can be hard. It surely can, but you get to go to work. And if that job was taken from you, you probably would even love the job more. And when they gave it back to you, right? So remember that you get to do the dishes. God gave you these beautiful children. Remember to remember they are a gift. I know every day is not the best. However, the way in which we carry ourselves will carry over to our children. If we are doom and gloom, expect your child to be doom and gloom, right? Because the teachers, I hate to say it, they're overwhelmed. They've got all these kids. COVID put a number on our kids, and the teachers are overwhelmed. So they need a great role model of, let's do it. I know it's not fun, but let's go, whatever, and you can do whatever you have to do to get your stuff here. Because remember, you are the thermostat. You are not the thermometer. Your children are going to go up and down like, it's a terrible day. But you have to stay at a cool 75. And sometimes you're a cool 75 trying to bring their 65 up, and you're up here at 85. But when they're at 85, you're down here, and it's all going to be okay, because you've got to be able to regulate your own emotionals, because our kids with ADHD, come on, they're 0 to 60 in no time flat.
Yeah. And I love that joy is a choice. Okay. I think that is something we should all write on a piece of paper and put on our mirror when we wake up in the morning, because it's hard. It is really hard. I talk about that a lot. Having a kid with challenges is hard, and that is okay. But again, this is another thing I've talked about a lot on this podcast, is that our kids up until a certain age regulate their nervous system through us. We are the key to their nervous system. And so, I love how you put that. Joy is a choice. And if we can be at that cool 75, then we can bring their 55 up. We can bring their 88 down. Right. So I think that's fantastic. So if it's not working, what you're doing, if it's not working, that's when to seek outside help.
Right. When you see they're in constant, my friends, and they're just in doom and gloom, or they're having a really hard time following through on work at school, meaning keeping up. I am not a fan of extended time on assignments. You and I don't get extended time. Most bosses don't get extended time. Tests is a whole nother thing. I can do extended time on testing, but we need to teach our kids how to hit a deadline. It is part of life to hit a deadline. Don't extend the deadline. Teach them how to manage the time before the deadline so they win. And that it's a huge life lesson, and it's not an easy one, because they always want, just one more day. Can I please have one more? No. There is a time when there is no more days, and you get your work done. So again, if that is very difficult for you and your family, because sometimes it is, we all work. I don't know about your listeners, but in Southern California, it's a 2 working household, to keep everything running. And so when you find that it's just too overwhelming for you to keep the routine, to stay on top of the homework, to stay on top of the Google Calendar, again, you can get a coach once a month, and we just tell you what's going on in the life, and we have a conversation with the parents and get you guys back on track. Because a lot of the time, if I can get you on track, parents on track, the kid, like you said, follows suit.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. And that brings me to something else. You're talking a lot now here about sort of executive functioning. And do you find that those executive functioning challenges affect the social skills as well?
Yeah, when you're doing not very well in school, you don't feel good about yourself. When you are consistently struggling and having to argue with your parents when you get home and you don't have a home relationship, your relationships suffer. Everything is interconnected. It's all connected. So when you're not doing well in school, when your mom and dad are mad at you all the time, when you feel crappy about yourself anyways, because all of that doesn't feel good, living in all of that, you would rather stay down here and hide with the hiders. And, chickens hang out with chickens and eagles hang out with eagles, and they're both birds, so you got to get your kids to feel like an eagle. And today might be a hard day to flap your wings, but you're out there and doing what you need to do. It's not a pity party. We don't continue the pity party. Get help. If you don't really, I don't know how about you, but we can very much develop who we are pretty much high school and under.
Yes.
And that's if we are in doom and gloom and everything's not going to work out, I need extra time and I'm still not going to get it done. Yeah, that's the rest of your life. So we've got to get our kids help. So if you find that your kid is there more often than not and you can't get them out of it, help. Do it now. It's going to be way better than getting them in rehab at 25.
Oh, I 100% agree. And that brings me to a point. So get your child help when what you're doing isn't working. Now, there is obviously a big difference between, a 4 or 5 year old and a high schooler. At what point do you as a professional feel that executive functioning coaching and social skills coaching, obviously those little things at home that we've talked about, but that executive functioning coaching, when do you think that really starts to become beneficial? Do you think a 6-year-old can benefit from executive functioning coaching, or do you think it's more in that middle school, high school?
I think I think if the parents are doing their job. Now, if you are helping your 6-year-old. So we're talking second grade. I don't even think first. Second grade to about 5th grade. If you are helping them understand what their day and what their scope of work is that needs to be done this week, and you are coaching them through it. And I mean coaching. You are their executive functioning brain. You are doing it with them until 5th grade. If you can start releasing the reins at 5th grade and they can keep up with it, but if they're not, then yes, I think around 5th grade is when you should absolutely seek outside help. Because again, if you have been setting them up for success and it's been working up until, and then as soon as you release the reins, it's like, woo, we have a problem. It's because your kid isn't able to keep up with that executive functioning and they need more. And so again, maybe they need a different tool. Maybe they need a different whatever. Maybe they just need a coach that knows how to get them through that. And then the lights start popping on. And so that's really what I feel, that you should get a coach to help you as a parent of young ones, and to help you run a household, a routine, a structure, again, what are you doing for your kids' social skills? Are they having friend dates? Are they watching you have friend dates as a mother and father? How do you hang out with your friends? What are you doing to model what it looks like to have friends? Are you putting them in group sports? Are you putting them in swimming? Are you putting them in whatever? Because again, I love swimming, but you're under the water alone most of the time. You know what I mean? We notice that, get them into some kind of a group thing to see how is the dynamic when they have to give and take and give and take, and where is that? So I think as parents of younger children, you might need some coaching on what's best for your family as a whole. But once you get into about the 5th grade and we start developing independence, then you need direct with your kid.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice, because I have a lot of families that come to me and sort of ask, well, does this coaching work? Would it work for my 6-year-old? And I actually haven't really ever known what the answer is. So thank you for sharing that. I have learned something today. I really appreciate it.
Not that my answers are always right.
True. I think everyone has their own opinion, but I think that, I think that's a really, really good starting place. So, as we finish up today's episode, is there a start today tip that parents can put into play today? That one takeaway that can really set them up for success, set their children up for success.
One? Well, I would say go back to kind of everything we talked about in terms of if your kid is having problem with team things, having problems giving and taking, having that team dynamic, get them on a team sport. Let the coach be helpful in that, right? It takes you out of it as a parent, because of course we're emotional with our children. Of course, it's normal. So again, try to get them into a team sport. At the same time, you can also be starting to implement, when I'm putting the dishes away and you come up to me and say, Mom, can you see what I'm doing and what my plan is to do here, right? And my plan is to do that. So you can say, Mom, can I help you put the dishes away? I need to talk to you. Again, your mom's going to be like, yeah, absolutely. So again, we try to help our kids and see if we can give them little things that we can to help the social structure go through. But again, with the older kids, I would really try to make sure if they're not having the friendships and feeling good in their friendships, I would reach out to someone. If you're in 5th, 6th grade and your kids are having a real hard time, and by real hard time, I mean they are not feeling good about school. Oh, I have to go to school. I have no one to hang out with. I don't know what lunches. I hope Sally's here today, because if Sally's not here, you know what I mean? And you hear the doom and gloom. Don't let the doom and gloom sit in. It's a very easy pool to get in and not get out of.
Yeah,
and so we need
slide down.
Yes, yeah. And so those would be the things, is really look at their emotional state. I think executive functioning and social skills, if you look at someone's emotional state on a consistent, of course we have our bad days. How are they most often? Really, that's going to tell you how they feel side. And that is social skills. When you and I are together, my job is to make you feel good. So you call me and want to hang out with me again. Right. And so if they don't feel good, they're not making other people feel good. They're just out there gossiping and stirring the pot. And that's not what we want. We want them to feel good.
We want them to feel good.
Yeah.
We want them to feel good. We want them to choose joy. Joy is a choice. That's the biggest takeaway for me. The other biggest takeaway for me, Kolby, is definitely using for the older kids that phone as a way in and a phone as the way out as well. I think that's a really good tip for teenagers, parents of teenagers to take away. Kolby, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining me today and just sharing your knowledge, your experience, your excitement, because I feel it through the screen, with all of our listeners. Please tell listeners where they can find and follow you online.
You could follow me on Instagram at Kolby Kail, and that's Kail. And my name starts with K-O. Anyways, I'm sure there's going to be stuff on
there.
It
will be.
And then info at Family First Speech Therapy, familyfirstspeechtherapy.com. All those
fantastic. Well, thank you, Kolby, once again for joining me today. Listeners, thank you for tuning into this week's episode of The Soaring Child. I'm Dana Kay, your ADHD health practitioner. Keep on thriving.